Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Lauren Hasson. She is a software engineer who's devoted her career really to helping female engineers get the most out of their careers. And she has a company called DevelopHer, and that's really proof of the work that she's doing. And she's offering also a course called NegotiatHer, and that helps female engineers know their value and how to get it. And I'm really interested to talk to her more about her work and what prompted her to form DevelopHer and NegotiatHer. And welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Lauren.
Thanks, Neil. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful. First question. I saw it in your, I did a little bit of research on you, and I saw that you got a degree in electrical engineering. Where'd that interest come from?
Well, very early on, I showed an aptitude for math and science. What people don't realize is I'm also really creative, and I was a competitive writer too. So I was showing an aptitude for the math and sciences, and of course, when you see a young girl who's good at math and science, you can't help but think, oh, she should have a technical career. I actually went to college with the intent of getting an electrical engineering degree so that I could go on to be an intellectual property attorney. And a lot of intellectual property attorneys need the electrical engineering degree in order to do their work. And then I took one look at the LSAT, I think it was my sophomore or junior year, and I said, no, thank you. And ended up going a different direction, but ended up with the electrical engineering and computer science and economics degrees.
Wow, that's a lot of degrees. But yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right about IP attorney. So I'm also a patent agent. So I also help people with their invention ideas. And it's a really nice a way of staying in touch with IP, but not having to do the LSAT, not having to go to law school. But you still get to take invention ideas and turn them into patent applications. And
well, in a funny twist of fate, my partner of 15 years, he is an IP attorney, and two of my best girlfriends are also IP attorneys. And I am surrounded by IP law work, and it's one of hands down the best decisions I've ever made for myself is to avoid the law career.
Yeah, I'm actually a member of another group, and it's made up of patent agents and patent attorneys. And actually, one of the patent attorneys had said that if he could go back and do things all over again, he might have just stayed up or just become a patent agent and not become a patent attorney at all. Because that's what he really enjoys is the drafting and prosecuting of patent applications. And you don't need to be a patent attorney to do that. So when it comes to the job that you currently have, what do you enjoy about it the most?
Well, first, let me tell you what I do. So I work remotely for a Silicon Valley payments company, and I joined initially about 3.5 years ago to build their iOS SDK. I built my name for myself in iOS, and that project got quickly killed. And then I, within a year, and I moved over to our web app powered by Rails. And then I also got into security. And so currently I wear two hats at the company. I own every line of code that we ship as the head of application security. And security really matters. We're a payments company that moves billions of dollars a year. So I'm playing in the big leagues. And then I also write code in Rails, and specifically I'm the architect of our voice system and all of our messaging. So messaging would include SMS, email, and I think security is fascinating. I think it's fun to learn about a new field. My heart is really in building. I love creating something from nothing, iterating through it. There's nothing I love more than just losing myself in an afternoon writing code and diving into it. And so I love building things, and I consider myself a builder.
All right. And when it comes to the work that you do currently, what are the things that you like the least?
Ooh, that's easy. I do not like being interrupted, the interrupt driven. And that's one of the things that I like the least. is being on call and frequently interrupted. I love to just dive into a problem and lose myself. And so as I sort of navigate where my career goes in the future, I've been erring towards the side where I can really be an expert in a particular domain and be called on that, but less interrupt driven.
Okay. I think before we started interviewing, you had said that the work that you do, you work from home. Is that something that you actively look to do, or is that just kind of the way that this job just worked out?
So I actively pursued working from home. Before this company, I was working at another company where I commuted to Nashville from my home in Dallas every single week. And initially it was commuting every week. And then towards the second half of my time there, it was working from home, and I discovered I am really good at it. And I love working from home. I find the lifestyle to be fantastic. So when it came time to pick another job, I was choosing between one that had me traveling all over the world, and one that had me working from the comfort of my home. And I picked working from home, and I haven't been happier.
Wow. So I guess when it comes to a lot of companies, the issue I think they have with people working on site as opposed to from home is the difficulty in fostering collaboration with the teams. Is that, so I guess, I mean, I'm assuming that's not hasn't been an issue with the companies that you've worked for?
Well, the company that I work for, we are nationally distributed. So we are a distributed company. Even the people who live and work in Silicon Valley only go into the office once or twice a week, or sometimes not at all. So it's part of the culture to work distributively. And that's one of my strengths is working remotely. I mean, one of my colleagues, before she left the company to go somewhere else, she gave me a review and she was like, it's like working remotely with Lauren is like working, like she's right there with you. And that's because I have strong communication skills, and proactively push out information. And I've found that to just be one of my strengths.
Wow. I just recall you saying you had to commute to Nashville from Dallas for one of your jobs every week.
Yeah, I did. So it was an early Monday morning, or I was up around 5:30 or so, and then I was on a 7. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I was on a 7 a.m. flight to Nashville. And the crazy thing is, I would beat people who lived in Nashville to the office on Monday morning. And so like I came from Dallas, and then I would fly back either Thursday or Friday night get home around 11 or midnight. I liked it because I didn't have a real long commute during the week, and it was just focus on work during the week, and then came home on the weekends and had my personal life. It was fantastic. But if I hadn't had that job that had me working remote for the second half of my tenure there, I might never have considered working remotely. And I discovered that I love it.
Wow. You know what? It's not even that surprising that people that live there got there after you did. Honestly, I think the closer you are to work is like inversely proportional to the time you actually end up there. Because you think you have all the time in the world, next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, I was supposed to be there 5 minutes ago. Well, better get out of the house. So when it comes to, I know you're really big on empowerment, and especially with female engineers. I'm assuming that's the biggest topic that you speak on. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Well, I speak on two. So I started DevelopHer, and what people don't realize is DevelopHer originally wasn't my own story. I had overwhelming imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to share my story when there are all these huge names out in tech, CTOs, CISOs. Sheryl Sandberg is almost the de facto name for women in tech, sharing the stories, and like, who am I? And so I actually started DevelopHer as my own podcast, sharing other women's stories. And then someone called me up and said, hey, Lauren, we need to fill a speaker in over lunch at a big women in tech summit. Like, do you have a story that can you entertain for 20 minutes? And I was like, well, I've got this story about how I just got back from the UK Innovation Summit and found out that not only was someone I was training who was several years junior to me making exactly what I was making at the time, but he was making 50% more when I was at his level. And it was just like, whoa, that was a kind of a shocker moment. And what I did about it, I went out and I tripled my salary. And not only did I land the speaking engagement, I ended up giving the keynote at, at the conference. And so it wasn't something that I set out to tell my story and to speak. It was more I was trying to solve a problem of, we need more technical women serving as role models for women in tech, not women with English and other degrees who are in the operations role, but really technical women who are still technical to this day. And I wanted to showcase those people. And then I discovered that I am one of those people that need to tell the story. So I started with salary negotiation and how I myself was underpaid, and I have all the credentials. I mean, I went to the UKG Innovation Summit. I have a triple major, and my work was featured in Apple keynotes, and I was still underpaid. And then I did something about it. And then I didn't think I could beat salary negotiation, like how to make more money. And then I did. I was invited back to that same summit a year later, and they said, do you have any more content? Which is exactly what you want. You want people calling you for repeat business. And I said, well, there's the story about how after 2008, I got just completely wiped out, had to start over from no network, no marketable skills, no technical skills, no job prospects. And within 2 years, through a series of steps that I outlined in the keynote, I was able to go to the top of the field. Huge awards and recognitions, and in demand, highly recruitable, and how I did it. And that's what has taken off. And I had the negotiation one was one of the highest rated sessions at Google. And they brought me back, and they're like, we don't know if you can beat this. And I beat it with my 0 to hero, which is how I went from nothing to top of my field in a very short amount of time. And I had women coming up to me shaking and crying at the end, going, you have no idea like how this has impacted me and like the hope that you've given me. So I didn't start to become a speaker. I didn't start thinking that anyone cared about my story. And what I discovered is I'm an everyday woman, just like everyone else, showing every woman how to move forward. Yeah. And the crazy thing is men too. I hear from men all the time. I market to women because I think there's a real need, but I have impacted lots of men too.
Yeah, when it comes to negotiation, I'm terrible at it. I'll be very honest. I mean, it's one of the things that I struggle with myself. So, I mean, I know as you said, the work that you do is tailored, or I guess targeted towards technical women, or technical women in engineering fields. But I'm sure there are a lot of men that could benefit to get a little.
I have a lot of men. And the only difference in the course is that I speak to the women, but men have taken my framework and gotten incredible results for themselves too. And I'm all for that. I support anyone who needs a boost of confidence and needs help moving forward.
Right. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the course, NegotiatHer, I guess. Yeah, NegotiatHer, and even though it's for men too, if you got the her in there. But yeah, guys can take it too. But what can people expect from the course?
Yeah, so the first thing is for right now, this might change in the near future. My intro to the course is free and available at DevelopHer.com. It not only gets you inspired with my own personal story of finding out I was underpaid and then working my way back and where I got to with it, but I walk you through 3 different negotiations and I reveal what the framework is. And that alone, people have gotten tremendous results. I hear people who come back to see me speak again, share stories about how that alone transformed their lives. And then the course is for everyone who wants extra help. So when I talk about in my keynote and webinar, ground yourself in data and how important data is to a successful negotiation, I've done the work for you. So when I say get broad and deep data, I've actually got 15 sources for you across 4 different categories and about 3 to 6 deep on each category, including what I call my secret weapons. And I tell you which ones trend high, which ones trend low, so you can paint a comprehensive picture. So the course starts by telling you, not telling you, but helping you discover what you really want. What's important to me in a negotiation today is completely different than what was important to me just 3 or 4 years ago. So it's important that every time you sit down and prepare for a negotiation, that you figure out, what does success actually look like for you? Not you, Neil, not me, Lauren, but you yourself. Then I help you go through the process of figuring out what your numbers should be and doing your due diligence and grounding yourself in data and getting your numbers. I walk you through that whole process, and I've done all the hard work to source the data. Then I help you figure out what your numbers are. And there are 3 numbers you need to know. You need to know your target, which is what's based in your data. You need to know your counter, your anchor, which is what you're going to counter with. And then you're going to know your walk away mark. And my 3 numbers for the same job are going to look different than yours, because that's dependent on, your personal financial situation. And it's dependent on the market and your employment situation. And so I help you figure that out based on multiple different factors. And so I kind of go through different scenarios and help you figure out what those numbers are for you, because those are really important. Then I help you identify another piece of data, which is leverage. And that's where you can really lock in an offer or get a premium. And when I say premium, I've gotten a $50,000 premium when one of the negotiations I walked you through in my webinar, I negotiated an offer at $50,000 in a matter of a couple hours. And that's because I got leverage and I figured out where I had an upper hand. And there's 5 different areas that I look at and questions that I ask and things that I look for. And so I walk you through those specific things. Then I help you prepare for pushback. And I guarantee you, and I actually, a very amusing story, negotiation that I walk you through in my free webinar is how I handled pushback. And if you're asking for the right number, you're going to get pushback. And if you're anything like me, I am not a think on your feet type person. I'm very much an introvert. I get intimidated in the moment. And so what I did is I prepared in advance for that. And I prepare scripts, I prepare questions, and I give like my go-to questions and the word for word that I use. For example, how much you currently making? Like that is almost guaranteed to get asked, except for in a couple states where it's illegal, even though they still ask it. And I go through, okay, if you get asked this, here's your first line, here's your first script that you should try. And 95% of the people are gonna take that and run with it. In the 5% case where they still push back, then here's what you say. And then if they still push back on that, then here's what you do. And it's based on my own experience in trial and error. And then I help you put your whole negotiation together, your personal selling points paired with leverage and the scripts for pushback, and show you how to put it all together in negotiation. And the good news is that it's no more than 2.5 hours in total content, and it's broken down into about 5 to 15-minute video modules, and it's all available online. I've been told you can do it on your iPhone or mobile phone as well. So I developed the course to be the course that I wanted, which is I don't have a long attention span, and I want to get to the nitty gritty and just get the information that I need.
You're speaking to the choir here, Lauren. I mean, when I put my course together, it was kind of the same type of thought process I had. I didn't want it to be too long that people wouldn't actually do it, and I didn't want the videos to be too long that people would actually stop watching them. So yeah, it's very similar. And also, I'm thinking, I'm in California, so that's one of those states where they're not allowed to ask you how much money you make. But
they're not allowed, but they still do.
Yeah, they ask something different though. They phrase it differently, but they're still trying to get the sense of how much money you're looking to get from the position. I think that's what they ask you. How much money are you looking to make?
And I also cover that. And they ask you that up front. And at that point, you don't know what the position position A could be totally different than position B. And like, how could you know? So I go over really important questions like that, so you don't self-sabotage yourself before you even start interviewing for the role.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, you could be happy with 75K, but if you were to have found out that the budget for that role was 100, but you only get 75, man, you gonna be real.
Oh, absolutely. I hear stories about that all the time. And I mean, the results, I knew this worked because it worked for me. I'd worked it with a number of friends, but I had people, both men and women, coming back to me with $30,000 more. I had someone who was already really top of her field in Android come back with $65,000 more in her dream company and dream position. And then another gal came back with not one, but two offers at $80,000 more. I mean, these are real people who've sat in audiences where I've given the keynote or, you know, listened to my online webinar and gone out and gotten real results just like you and me.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's why I'm winning some awards, because I'm actually making it done. I'm not just talking about bridging the gender wage gap, like I'm actually getting it done.
Nice. So when it comes to public speaking in general, I know you had said that it wasn't something you set out to do, but was it something that you were always good at? And if not, what'd you do to get better at it?
So there's a great story here, and you'll love this. You have no idea this is coming. So this is my second round at running a company, and my first company I ran was the Resume Girl. I helped college students get their first job or internship about 12 years ago. And I billed myself as a speaker, and I just sort of got up there and winged it and didn't really prepare. And I landed two really big speaking engagements. And I just remember 2 weeks before, my boyfriend at the time said, you know, have you prepared? Are you ready to go? And it was just like, oh, I was just going to kind of wing it. And I mean, it was just 2 weeks of hell where I realized I was up a creek without a paddle. And I remember driving to the airport, or, you know, being driven to the airport and just hoping that the flight got canceled. It was just it was just so nervous. I got up there and yeah, I was nervous. You could tell. One client flat out fired me. The other one called up and said, you were bad. Your content was great, so we're not going to fire you, but like, you should really consider Toastmasters, which I never did. I just didn't speak for about 12 years. And when I was getting right before I was getting developers spun up, I knew that speaking in some form was going to be required to get this off the ground. I didn't think it was going to be delivering keynotes and how much I would love it, but I put in the practice and I took a course on how to speak, and it was less, what I got from it was the repetition. And what I discovered is I learned to practice, which was what my problem was. I don't have stage fright. In fact, I get really excited. The bigger the audience, the better. But everyone has their weakness. And for me, my weakness was getting prepared and practicing. And so what I did is I built that muscle, and they had me doing these crazy little exercises where I had to, you know, make a video and record myself speaking about why I love dark chocolate or my favorite piece of candy. And what I discovered is in the work I anticipated that would go into something, it actually wasn't as bad as I was anticipating. So I got really good at practicing. And so when I landed my first keynote in September of 2017, and I had to give the keynote just 2 months later, and I pitched a keynote that didn't even exist. So I not only had to develop it all from scratch, but I had to master it. And by the way, the last time I gave a keynote, I was fired. I was nervous, and I practiced. I practiced so much. I put so much work into developing the content. And then I knew the material. And I got to tell you, I was actually nervous when I took the stage the first time, because I was like, well, is this all common sense? Are people going to say, why is she even telling us this? I already knew this. But I knew I left it all on the stage, and I got a standing ovation. I not only got which just doesn't happen at conferences. I've seen it. I've never seen it happen for anyone else, and it's happened to me a couple times. I got a standing ovation, And then I had a line of people waiting to speak to me, to book me for their events. And then I think the most meaningful comment was someone came up to me and said, "Oh, well, Lauren, you know, you're really lucky. You're such a natural speaker." And I, you know, number one, I accepted the compliment because we as engineers, and even more so as women, don't accept compliments enough. And so I accepted it, but then I was like, I'm going to peel back the curtain. I'm going to tell you, when I started this talk 2 months ago, I was bad, like really, really bad. It was rough. Like you would have been disgusted if you had heard that round. This is the result of a lot of practice and a lot of work. And when I prepare for a talk, I put tens of hundreds of hours into preparing, even with the talk that I know. I record myself every single time, and I listen to it back. And so I'm constantly iterating. So you weren't expecting that, but I was bad. I first had to fail. And then really dive into it. And I'm a huge proponent in my Zero to Hero keynote of investing in the change that you want. So like I've never gotten anywhere. I don't have a mentor who took me aside and showed me how to do something for free. If I wanted to get a skill, I went out and I paid the money to learn that skill.
Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of what you just said, because it kind of mirrors even my own journey in public speaking. I had to give presentations in front of management. I was working as a product development engineer in medical devices. I had to do these presentations every month, and those first few presentations were absolutely horrendous. I was doing exactly what you did. I wasn't practicing. I was just getting up there and winging it, and I didn't know it was possible to sweat that profusely in front of people when I was giving I'm telling you, like sweat was coming out of places I didn't even know sweat could come out of.
Oh, no, I know. I'm dripping wet when I finish speaking because it literally is an athletic performance for me.
Yeah, and I knew I had to get better. My project actually got canceled, and I'm thinking I'm going to be out of a job. Luckily, they assigned me to something else, but I knew like I can't be doing this.
Yeah. Well, you know, look, sometimes you have to fail in order to learn a really valuable lesson and pick yourself back up and learn from that. If you don't learn, you're never going to move forward. But some of my biggest wins in life, I first failed. And that's what, you know, people, I share very openly how I failed. And then, hey, by the way, I picked myself back up. Here's what I learned. I invested in correcting and improving whatever held me back. And then look at me now.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with negotiation. Like when I found out I was underpaid, I didn't just magically earn more money. It was multiple steps. And I had so many missteps over a 2-year period where I tripled my salary. And that's what those are the most powerful lessons in my course is, hey, I tried it this way. Don't do this. It's like, this doesn't work. Or, hey, this is really powerful, but only in these cases. Trust me, because I learned the hard way.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to putting your presentations together, I know you said you practice quite a bit, but do you actually have a more formalized, well, I don't want to say formalized, but do you have a process that you go through? And if so, what is it?
That's a good question. So I have 2 very strong keynotes. I'm a storyteller. So I tell the story first to get everyone engaged. So my keynotes have the same structure. First, it's my personal story, where I was, what happened, and then here's where I did, and you know, here's what I was able to turn around and do. So get everyone excited. That takes about 10 to 15 minutes. 99% of the people love it and getting inspired and feeling like, oh, she can do it, I can do it too. And so it's relating to the audience. I do get the 1% who are like, I don't care about your story. And I'm like, great. You would not believe it. I had people provide conferences that feedback, be like, I'm happy for her, but I really don't care. And I'm like, okay, you missed the point. The point is, if I can do it, you can do it too, and make this relatable. Like, otherwise, why should you be listening to me? And so it's really establishing myself as an expert and why you should be listening to me. And so by the time I'm finished with my 10 to 15 minute personal story of going from here to there, you're really tuned in and like, hey, I want to listen to her. She's not just any speaker that they put up on the stage. She's someone I should really listen to. So there's building rapport, inspiring confidence, inspiration, and then also establishing yourself as an expert. Then I break it down into stories and then teaching points within those stories. So in one keynote, I tell 3 stories, and then after each story, I break it down into here's what I did, here's how I did it. In my other keynote, I break it down into 5 teaching points, and then I tell stories to illustrate how I did that. And then my formula for success is I bring it back and tie it back to them at the end. Because that's really, why are you there? Like, what does this mean for me? It's great that you can do it, but can I do it too? And when I first started off with my negotiation keynote, I didn't have other stories to share other than myself. But over the years, I've had thousands of women go through this and get their own change. And so I share stories of women who've sat exactly where they're sitting, whether it's a webinar or in person, and gone out and gotten their own change, so that they know, oh, wait, it's not just Lauren. She's not some magical, mythical engineer who did this. These are people just like me, and then like what the next steps are. And that's what I seem to be my formula. But it's not easy to develop a talk. I mean, I've got a number of other talks kind of thinking like in my tool chest. But it's a lot of work, and that's kind of why I'm dragging my feet on doing something new, because it is a lot of work to put into it.
Yeah, you said that this was a good question. It made me think that all the questions I asked beforehand weren't all that great. Every time everyone says that, or I ask a question, they say good question, but I'm thinking, the question I asked before that, they didn't say good question.
No, all your questions have been fantastic. It was I was highlighting like that. Hey, this is like really important for that, and made me think.
Yeah, great, good save. So I firmly believe what you're talking about in terms of telling stories. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to us, engineers, we don't think that applies to us when it comes to the more technical type presentations. But I firmly believe it even applies more, because a lot of times we are presenting things that are dry, a lot of data, a lot of facts, stats, tables and charts and stuff. And if you're presenting, especially when you're presenting in front of non-technical people, you have to find a way to keep their interest, and stories is a great way to do that.
And people also learn better by stories. If you're presenting information, it's really difficult to regurgitate, versus it's much easier for a human to remember a story and retain information that way. So I use both teaching points and stories to retain the information and keep people interested.
Yeah, so I know you have the course Negotiators, which really helps people with improving their negotiation skills. Are there any other courses that you will work on in the future?
Yeah, there's certainly going to be more. I also have a monthly membership. People get access to me and the community with the developer Slack, and then I have a monthly group coaching call, so Q&A call, and show up, coach. I also work with corporations as well, so that's my Zero to Hero program. Believe it or not, corporations also bring me in for salary negotiation training as well. So there's not every corporation sees it that way, but some do. And so I have group coaching for corporations, the training for Zero to Hero. And then I also work with boot camps, higher ed, on licensing out my course to all of their students.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Neil.